The cry rose faint and thin, drifting through the stillness of early dawn like something torn from another world. Caleb Holt froze halfway through saddling his sorrel mare, head lifting, breath held. The sound came again, high, sharp, carrying an edge of pain that didn't belong out here in these quiet foothills. For a moment he thought it must be an animal, some wounded fox or restless night bird. But no. There was shape in that cry. A human shape. And it came from Blackwell Mine, a place no one in Rust Creek had touched since the roof collapsed 3 winters back. Caleb stood there barefoot in the cold dirt, feeling the frost creep between his toes. He told himself it couldn't be real. Nobody went near that mine. The last time he'd walked out carrying his little brother Eli's body in his arms, lungs crushed from the falling timbers. After that, Caleb stopped riding into town. Stopped talking much at all. Stopped believing in anything except keeping the ranch alive. Another cry. This one shorter, cut off, like someone trying not to be heard. Against every instinct screaming not to remember, he grabbed his coat and shotgun and swung into the saddle. The mare sensed the tension and snorted, stamping the cold ground as if to warn him back. But Caleb nudged her forward. The hills around Rust Creek still slept under a pale wash of morning, shadows lingering like ghosts. Caleb followed the old trail that threaded through pines and broken shale toward the mine. Every hoofstep stirred memories he'd buried deep, Eli laughing as they raced, Eli humming while working the sluice line, Eli's final gasp as the mine swallowed him. No one should be in there. No one alive should want to be. He dismounted near the entrance, where boards hung at odd angles. The cry had gone silent. Only the whisper of wind that never seemed to leave this place remained. Caleb lifted the lantern he'd brought, stepping past the sagging beams. Inside, dust hovered like fine snow. His lamp cast long shadows that shifted with each breath. Somewhere deeper in the tunnels, a rock clattered. Not by accident. Who's in here? Caleb called, voice low, steady despite the hammering in his chest. Silence. Then a whimper, soft, desperate, unmistakably human. Caleb tightened his grip on the lantern and pushed forward. He wasn't prepared for who he was about to find. The tunnel sloped downward until the air turned colder, thinner. Caleb's lantern flickered against walls veined with old silver threads. He reached the collapsed junction, the place where Eli had died, and for a moment he couldn't move. The grief surged, thick and blinding. The whimper sounded again, this time behind a wall of fallen rock. Caleb knelt and pressed his ear to the rubble. "Talk to me," he murmured. Something shuffled. A weak voice responded, cracking with thirst. "Help, please." He dropped the lantern, grabbed 2 fallen boards and began levering away chunks of stone. Dust rained over his shoulders. Every grunt of effort tore the scab off memories he'd kept locked away. After what felt like an hour, though it could have been minutes, Caleb pried open a gap wide enough to peer through. A face stared back at him. Mud-smeared. Bruised. Half hidden beneath a curtain of tangled dark hair. Caleb's breath stopped. It was Lena Carver. The last person he expected to see inside a death trap like this. The same Lena whose father owned the largest ranch in the county, and the same woman Caleb once hoped to marry before fate had other ideas. She had vanished from Rust Creek 10 months ago without a word, leaving behind rumors sharp enough to cut. He swallowed hard. Lena? How? Caleb, her voice trembled, cracked. They'll come back. You shouldn't be here. Who? His hands tightened around the rock. But she shook her head, eyes wide with warning rather than fear. Just, get me out first. He hesitated. If someone had chased her in here, if someone dangerous was near, he was putting himself right in their sights. And Lena Carver had always walked with shadows, her father's debts, the men who rode with him, the deals whispered in saloons. Caleb, she whispered again. Please. Duty warred with memory. She had left him once. Broken him without explanation. Saving her might drag him into a storm much larger than whatever trouble currently trapped her. But the look in her eyes, raw, pleading, honest, stirred something he thought he'd buried with Eli. He jammed the board beneath a heavy slab and pushed. Muscles screamed. Stones shifted. Finally a gap opened wide enough for him to reach through and pull her out. She stumbled into his arms, shaking, clutching something wrapped in cloth close to her chest. Before he could ask, distant thunder rolled across the hills. Not thunder. Hoofbeats. Many riders. Getting closer. Caleb extinguished the lantern. "Lena, what did you bring here?" She held the bundled cloth tighter. "Something they'll kill us both for." Outside the mine, the first light of full morning spilled across the ridges, turning frost into glittering shards. Caleb crouched behind a boulder with Lena beside him, studying the rising dust cloud from the ridge to the east. No doubt about it now, riders, maybe 8 or 10, moving with purpose. Searching. Lena clutched the bundle to her chest, breathing shallow. Caleb hadn't yet seen what she held. Every time he reached toward it, she flinched like an animal that had been beaten too many times. "Tell me what they want," he whispered. Her throat worked. "My father made a deal he couldn't pay. The men coming, they're collecting. I took this," she touched the bundle, "to stop them." Caleb glanced at the riders. "What is it?" Lena shook her head. "Not here." A horn sounded, low, echoing across the slopes. The riders split, half circling toward the lower trail, half toward the tree line above. Trapping anyone who might be hiding. Caleb's heart began its slow, heavy thud. He'd avoided trouble for years, burying himself in cattle work, keeping his head low, his heart lower. But trouble had found him anyway, wrapped in a torn blanket in the arms of the woman he once would have crossed the territory for. "We can't go back the way I came," Lena whispered. "They'll have that road covered." "There's another trail," Caleb said. "Steep. Not many know it." He guided her along the cliffside, keeping low. Every rustle of brush, every clatter of loose stone felt louder than it should. The riders reached the mouth of the mine minutes after they slipped away. Caleb heard their voices, rough, impatient, confident. "Tracks here. Fresh ones." They got her. "Spread out." Caleb grabbed Lena's arm and hurried her behind a stand of junipers. The riders fanned across the hillside, rifles slung, eyes sharp. They weren't hired hands. These were men used to violence. One rider stopped barely 20 yards away. He scanned the scrub, turning his horse slowly, so close Caleb could see the slit scar under the man's eye. Lena's fingers dug into Caleb's sleeve. The rider tilted his head, listening. Caleb held his breath. A single pebble slid down the slope behind them. The man snapped his gun up, eyes narrowing. A heartbeat from disaster. Then a second rider called out from below, "Tracks head north." "She's still on foot." Scar-Eye jerked his reins and bolted after him. Caleb didn't move until the last hoofbeat faded. He exhaled. "We need to move." Lena finally spoke, voice trembling. "If they catch us, Caleb, that bundle I'm carrying won't be the only thing they kill." They reached a narrow ravine carved by an old spring, its bed dry but steep-walled, hidden from the ridge. Caleb helped Lena down, steadying her as her legs buckled. Once sheltered beneath the overhang of stone, she finally loosened her grip on the bundle. "Caleb," she said quietly, "you deserve to know." She unwrapped the cloth. Inside lay a ledger, thick, leather-bound, pages filled with tight, angry script. Caleb skimmed lines, names, dates, amounts, and something worse. Payments to men who never should have been paid. Lists of stolen cattle sold under false brands. Town officials bribed. His stomach dropped. This ledger could burn half the county down. "That's what they're chasing?" he asked. Lena nodded. "It's my father's." Everything he's done. Everything he planned. I ran before he could destroy it. Those riders, they aren't just collectors. They're the men who helped him. Caleb stared at her. Why bring it to me? Because, she whispered, you're the only person I ever trusted. The only one who might believe me. And I didn't know where else to go. A long silence stretched between them, heavy, aching, filled with years of words never spoken. Caleb had imagined this moment more times than he cared to admit, though never like this, both of them dirt-streaked, hunted, leaning against cold stone. You left, he said quietly. No note. Nothing. Her eyes glistened. My father found out about us. He said if I didn't end it, he'd make sure you never walked again. Or worse. I thought leaving was the only way to keep you safe. Caleb felt the old wound tear open. Rage and sorrow tangled inside him, but seeing the bruises on her face, the cuts on her hands, he felt something else too, something harder to bury. She looked toward the ridge. I shouldn't have dragged you into this. You didn't drag me, he said. I walked in on my own. Lena leaned her head back against the stone, exhaustion overtaking her. The ravine quieted. For a rare moment, the world felt still. But not safe. Above them, a distant shout echoed, the riders doubling back. Caleb tightened his grip on the ledger. We can't stay here. Lena pushed herself upright, determination glinting through exhaustion. Then let's finish this. If we reach the marshal in town, he can put this somewhere those men can't bury. Caleb nodded, but as they climbed the ravine wall, brushing dirt from their palms, the distant rumble of hooves returned, closer now, closing in. Hope and danger hung in fragile balance. Section 5, Full Resolution plus Epilogue. They broke from the ravine onto a narrow ridge overlooking the scrub-choked basin below. Rust Creek lay miles beyond it, a thin ribbon of dust rising from chimneys in the distance. Safety, or something like it, shimmered at the horizon. But between them and town rode the men hunting Lena. Caleb saw them first, 4 riders pushing up from the south, another 2 circling from the west. The last pair appeared behind, cutting them off. A tightening noose. Lena drew a shaky breath. There's no way through. Caleb scanned the land. There is. But it's dangerous. So is stopping. He nodded once, the decision crystallizing. Stay behind me. The riders crested the ridge. Scar-Eye raised his rifle. Hand over the ledger, Holt. And the girl. Caleb stepped forward, shotgun leveled, voice steady. You're not getting either. Scar-Eye sneered. You think you're a hero? That ledger'll kill half the folks you know. Shouldn't have stuck your nose in Carver business. Caleb shifted his weight, angling himself between Lena and the open slope. Funny thing, he said softly. I never liked Carver business. The first shot came from the west, a warning crack that hissed past Caleb's boot. Then chaos erupted. Riders split, circling fast. Caleb fired once, scattering the nearest pair. Lena dropped low, clutching the ledger, scrambling toward a cluster of rocks. Scar-Eye charged straight at Caleb. Caleb dove aside, rolling as the horse thundered past. He grabbed Scar-Eye's boot, yanking him from the saddle. They crashed hard. The shotgun skidded away. Scar-Eye swung first, knuckles cracking against Caleb's jaw. Pain burst white. Caleb struck back, landing a blow that snapped Scar-Eye's head sideways. Another rider closed in. Lena scrambled toward Caleb's shotgun. She grabbed it awkwardly, bracing it against her shoulder the way Caleb once taught her. The rider lifted his pistol. Lena fired. The blast echoed through the basin. The rider tumbled. Caleb pinned Scar-Eye, wrenching the man's arm until he dropped his knife. Call him off, Caleb growled. Scar-Eye spat blood. Not a chance. Then the thunder of fresh hooves sounded, but not from the hunting party. From the valley below, Marshal Briggs and 3 deputies rode hard, rifles ready. Someone must have seen the riders searching the hills and sent for help. Briggs shouted, "Drop your weapons." The remaining riders bolted. Scar-Eye tried to break free, but Caleb forced him down until Briggs reached them and cuffed the man. Lena stood trembling, clutching the ledger to her chest. Briggs took one look at it and raised his brows. "Well now, seems like we've opened a rattlesnake nest. It needs to be locked away," Lena said quietly. Briggs nodded. "We'll take it from here." But Lena held tighter. "I want to be there when it's read." The marshal studied her, then Caleb. "You both better come with me." Epilogue. Weeks later, the Carver Ranch passed into federal hands. Arrests rippled across counties. The ledger cracked open truths long buried, and the town of Rust Creek shook for months. Lena testified. Caleb stood beside her every day. When the trials ended, she didn't return to her father's land. She stayed with Caleb on his quiet ranch at the foothills, the place where grief had once swallowed him whole, now filled with the slow return of something gentler. Sometimes, they rode past the mouth of Blackwell Mine, where wind still hummed through broken boards. Lena would grip Caleb's hand a little tighter. And Caleb, glancing at the woman he once lost and somehow found again, would tip his hat against the light and whisper, almost to himself, "Didn't expect to find life in that darkness." The hills carried the echo. A final shot line, 2 silhouettes on horseback against the dying sun, riding toward a horizon no longer haunted.